Hello, and welcome to the presentation Integrating Poetry Therapy and AI Artificial Intelligence in Online Counseling. I am your presenter today, Dr. Abby Doherty, she, her pronouns. I have my Gmail there in the corner of the slide. I'm happy to share slides with you. I'm always looking to connect with others that are passionate about the arts in counseling, technology in counseling, and of course, as the topic presents today, the intersection of these ideas. So let's get started. Okay, just a brief overview of our agenda today. We will define the idea of poetry therapy and connect it to counseling practice. And then we'll think about how AI fits into all of this, particularly within an online counseling setting. I just want to say, within my own experience, both as a counseling practitioner and an individual, I have found profound growth and development resilience through writing and through poetry. Poetry, with its rhythm and imagery and depth, has the unique ability to touch the deepest corners of our hearts and minds, facilitating healing, growth, and understanding. This personal engagement with poetry has not only shaped my approach to counseling, but has also ignited a curiosity about how technology, and particularly AI, can be harnessed to deepen this impact. And so just know, as we move through this presentation, I'm going to share insights and reflections from my own journey, integrating video and poetry to illustrate the profound connection between language, emotion, and healing. I've used a bunch of different cases and examples here to hopefully inspire new forms of expression within counseling, both for our clients, but also for ourselves. As we navigate this discussion, I invite you to consider the transformative power of words and the potential for technology to expand the boundaries of traditional counseling. So let's begin together and learn a little bit about what it means to engage in poetry therapy. And now that we've reviewed a little bit about the agenda, I hope that this presentation is as much an opportunity to learn about poetry therapy in the context of counseling as it is an invitation for you to take care of yourself. And so I thought I'd just begin and invite you in this moment to take a mindful breath and invite you to engage in a short activity that I like to use as a way to get my mind primed for writing, called a 6-word story. And really, it's see if you can kind of cultivate a space of non-judgment and write just 6 words about what's going on in your moment right now. Let's just start at the beginning here and think about what poetry therapy is. So it is a form of expressive art therapy that utilizes poetry and other forms of written expression to promote healing, growth, and transformation. I also find it to be an incredible resilience builder, if you will. It intertwines the power of language, emotion, and creativity, and it offers a unique avenue for individuals to explore and express their innermost thoughts and feelings. I often say to my clients, please tell me your inner voice, the one that you don't share with anyone. That is the authentic voice that I want to hear and connect with as we work together. And poetry therapy serves as a catalyst for healing by facilitating that self-expression and emotional release. And without a doubt, it provides insights to clients. It offers a voice to the unspoken, a shape to the formless, allowing individuals to articulate their experiences, emotions, and thoughts in a manner that is both structured and liberating. Through the act of writing or engaging with poetry, clients can uncover new perspectives, find meaning in their experiences, and embark on a journey of self-discovery and emotional healing. So what kind of techniques and key ideas do we use when we're engaging in poetry therapy, sort of regardless here of the setting? Well, first of all, we're valuing a couple of core techniques. We're writing and we're reflecting. It's an interactive process. We're reading different kinds of poetry and literature, and looking to attune and resonate with it, discussing and reflecting on themes, emotions, and imagery. And one of my favorite interventions to use within, when I integrate poetry into therapy is just to ask clients, what would the next verse be to this poem? Uh, as a way to extend the story. That can be a really easy way to get things going. And it's, at its core, I really believe a seed for rapport building, relationship growth. And poetry therapy often involves sharing one's own written work, if clients are up for that, which provides an avenue for us to validate feelings, foster empathy, and build a sense of community. And poetry, what I really love about it, particularly as a counseling supervisor, is that it can be easily integrated within multiple theoretical perspectives. I use an integrated perspective through a relational cultural theory lens, but I've worked with students who have used poetry therapy or have given it a go within group settings with CBT, with mindfulness-based, with narrative-based. There's lots of opportunities here for anything that draws upon language. Really, you might say the core counseling art form. And these techniques are not just tools for expression, but also vehicles for exploration. Even if a client doesn't, quote unquote, interpret a poem correctly or something like this, it serves as a point for us to begin with each other. And at times we're working in situations where that can be quite difficult. And so poetry can really serve as a vehicle for deepening connection, not only when we want to, but when it's hard. And so, like, what are the benefits? There are a lot of benefits to integrating poetry, and we've talked about just some of those: expression, validation. It's also really flexible. This helps us to, be able to more easily, I think, integrate the client's cultural framework into our counseling practice. It serves as documentation of our progress. It's really fun to look back at the client's progress and use the poems if they see fit as a way to explore their progress and or journey through counseling. And a lot of this can be very anonymous, which can make it easier for clients, particularly clients who are struggling with anxiety, to go through, to break down some of what they're feeling and moving through. And there's good neuroscientific data to support this kind of intervention, both at the individual and group level. It also allows for metaphor and imagery within counseling. And there's multiple studies now and evidence-based to support art-based tools as a culturally responsive way to engage in counseling process. And so let's take a look already at how AI has been used within an online counseling setting. I mean, of course, artificial intelligence has become sort of the hot topic, if you will, right now in our point in history. And AI has become an incredible tool in terms of supporting practitioners with note writing, with letter writing, with really any part of our work that involves writing and working and thinking usually through an interdisciplinary lens, which helps with continuation of care. So one of my favorite interventions is writing a 6-word story, because sometimes we're just so, burned down, overwhelmed, or just, disassociated in trauma that we cannot form verbal language. But 6 words seems to be a special spot there for beginning some verbal processing. And the nice thing about using AI is you can write your story or have AI write it for you by giving it the prompt and then coming up with a visual image to go with that story. And this is just one that I came up with. And the leaf said goodbye for now. And it just deepens the opportunity for storytelling and, really for fun and honoring to occur within the online counseling setting. And poetry has long served as a medium for protest. It's been a really powerful tool in multiple social justice movements, really serving as a catalyst for change and a means for people to express themselves that might not otherwise have the ability to do so. And throughout history, poets have used their craft to highlight injustices, inspire action, and communicate deep emotional experiences of those affected by societal issues and oppression. And a poetic words can capture the complexity of emotions and the urgency of social causes in a way that resonates deeply. And it helps move people towards empathy and action. And this art form also provides a platform for marginalized voices, offering a space to be heard and to challenge the status quo. And really, from the civil rights movements to modern day activism, poetry has not just reflected societal change, it has shaped it, and proving that words indeed have the power to move the world, which is an incredibly important part of a social justice practitioner. And out of the process of using AI to divine and explore poetry therapy, I've also been using those poems and putting them into AI and saying, hey, this poem is a representation of a social justice cause that's important to me. For example, in this case, food as a human right, food as medicine. And so I said, please write a letter to my local representative based on this poem that will help me to support and engage in systems-based change around helping folks in my community to be able to eat and thrive. So let's dream and imagine together, because oppression does not just have an impact on social structures and systems of oppression, but also in our mind, and oppression can happen in imagination. And if there were ever a time that we needed imagination to flourish, now is that. And so let's talk about AI. AI, generative AI, really is what I'm referring to here, as I'll show you some examples with ChatGPT, is based on this idea of large language models. And this kind of technology builds kind of linguistic systems to be able to figure out what it is that you're looking for through conversational text. You really don't have to put, I found, too much specifics into GPT, because it will learn how you communicate. And over time, it will, what feels like, produce evidence or, work that is reflective of my conscious experience. So right now, at this point in history, there are three kind of large companies, applications online that are offering generative AI tools for the average user, if you will. The one we've all heard the most about, ChatGPT. I have a subscription to that as well. I pay about $20 a month right now to be able to use the full scale model of GPT, if you will. Although, rumors have it that most of these tools are going to become free in the near future, ChatGPT being integrated into Microsoft 365. So we'll see what happens with that. But Google's version used to be known as Bard, now Gemini. I recently started using that. And at first, I wasn't using that tool as much as GPT because I found the images, the ability for it to make text to to image not as strong or as accurate as the GPT. That said, recently I found it to be developing. Probably as more users are getting into it, it's getting better. That also is a subscription based. And Claude, you might not have heard of, but is developed by somebody who left GPT. One of the founders created Claude. Now, Claude doesn't have text to image, but I did find it particularly helpful in writing poetry, which I'm going to show you a video of here. And I also think it has one of the nicer user interfaces. And between the three of them, although I'm mostly using ChatGPT because I find that interface the easiest to use, I actually think that Claude 3 has a more inclusive interface for folks to use. So let's look at a couple examples together. Here I am, I'm logged in to GPT. And by the way, if we were together live or synchronous, I would have you set up an account if you were open to that. Everything's an invitation. And we would explore GPT together live with each other. Because what I've really found about these kinds of communicative or creative technology is that it helps to as a kind of relational glue, and so can really serve for fun, playful spaces for people to connect within. So here is just a really basic example using GPT. So I'm typing in there, hey, I'd like to write a poem with you. And you'll see here ChatGPT says, oh, great. Like, how would you like to do this? So I get started, I give it a line, it gives me a line, and we can just kind of go back and forth like that. You can see the example here. And it's so easy and quick. Okay? And so if I go to here's another example, except this time I have asked it to write a poem as though they are taking on the persona of Langston Hughes. And so, and the persona here, I'm talking about social justice, throughout this presentation, and yet, thinking about a client-centered approach, work with children, it could take on a SpongeBob or Hello Kitty, or, just really, this can be personalized to whomever you're working with. Let me show, it's the Langston Hughes example. Just going to say here, like Langston Hughes. And what I want to say about the poetry that comes from GPT is it's rhymey and a little catchy, okay? But the idea here is that you have a reciprocal or interactive process where it gives you one thing, you edit it, get another thing, and so, or another product. And so through this lens, it's very interactive in the same way that poetry therapy is already interactive. Okay, and here is an example of my free account through Gemini. Used to be Bard through Google, their version of AI writing, and super simple to use, uh, great interface, and wonderful for writing poetry, as we're about to see here. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about using Gemini is it also, besides offering to help me write this poem, it talks to me about different ways in which I could expand the poem. So that might be particularly helpful when you or the client is struggling with what to write. I mean, one of the reasons why I enjoy AI so much is, When you sit down and you want to write, you want to be creative, and you're in that stuck space, you just need some kind of exercise to get you into the flow space. And this is a really easy way to just begin to play, have fun, be spontaneous, get into a mindful, present, focused space so that you can allow for your own creative process to unfold. Now, I'm just diverting off for a moment here from the sort of big generative AI application models to show you this one in particular, Google Verse by Verse, which is an AI application specifically made for writing poetry. And I'm just going to play this little video here so you can get a little overview.
Writing poetry is not always easy or fun, but the new website, Verse by Verse by Google Research, will use the magic of artificial intelligence to automatically generate a poem written in the style of some of the most famous poets of all time. Here's how it works. First, access Verse by Verse at sites.research.google/verse-by-verse and click the button to begin. You can select up to 3 famous poets for inspiration, and if you don't know who some of these are, you can learn more about each poet by clicking on their photo. Once you've made your selection, choose the format for your poem. Then, type your poem's first line. What you write on the first line will help generate the responses from our poets, and you'll see them here. You can continually refresh until you've found lines that you like. To add a line, just click it. To continue to another line, just click to add a new verse. You can either type your line or use one from one of our poets. Once you finish, add your title and click Complete Poem. And here it is. If you'd like, you can even choose a design to accent your poem. And if you want to save it, you can copy the text and paste it to a document, or download it as a PNG image file. So in just a few minutes, you can use AI to write your own poem inspired by some of the greatest writers of all time using Verse by Verse. So check out Verse by Verse by Google Research. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you liked this video, then please feel free to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on
poetry. And this might be a great place to just help folks to get started, especially I'm just thinking of children and adolescents who might just be getting exposed to poetry for the first time, or maybe, you just need a more concrete place to begin. And I did want to mention that one of the ways that you can engage with ChatGPT or Bard or any of the other ones is to do exactly what this application has done here. This is really nice. It's walking you through. You just have to make a couple clicks and you can write something. But you could also prompt the AI generative model to write a poem, for example, like, write this in the vein of Rumi, write this in the vein of Robert Frost. So, there's lots of different ways to expand the writing process as you're moving through the poetry intervention. And just another example offered here using Claude. As you can see, they all kind of use the same kind of approach. They write a couple lines, you write a couple lines. And so really, the way to get the most out of using one of these large language models, one of these generative AI interventions, is for the process to be iterative, meaning that you're going back and forth. And so I often say, as a prompt into GPT or whatever I'm using, please begin here by giving me a line. We're going to write this poem together. You write one line, I write one line. And the more specific the intervention or the directive that you give the large language model, the more sort of reflective poem that you'll get that feels more connected to what you were looking for. And the other piece is that, sort of initially when you're writing these poems, they can be what do I want to say, kind of surface level at times, rhythmic in a way that's kind of artificial or cheesy, if you will. But if you continue to edit them, you can edit that out and humanize the voice of the poem. But it does require an iterative process. So just really wanting to emphasize this part about it being iterative. So, really, one of the major aspects of AI that I love the most is that you are really thinking about your idea through a multimodal lens. Most of the poems that I write, I then copy and paste into the poem, into the AI app, and say, now I'd like you to make an image that represents the whole of this poem, or an image of just one line of the poem. And really, then the images also become a kind of analysis that you can use, as well as documentation of your therapeutic process with the client. One of the most popular text to image generation applications right now is called Midjourney, Midjourney AI. This is just one image. I embrace being a crazy cat lady. I love the cats. Anything cats is good for me. And I was writing a poem one day just to get my mind kind of loose and started about cats. And here's an image based on that poem. And it's just to say there are lots of applications out there. In fact, one of the hard parts of the process of pulling this presentation together was, which applications were I going to show? Because there's really so many now. And if you go on YouTube, that's really a good place to start. And looking at, make sure your filter is set to like the last 6 months, because this is such a fast moving train of AI application generation. You want to get the most recent ones and look to see what you find in terms of just reviews from other users. But I specifically am looking for application tools that require little to no user experience in terms of digital art generation. And Midjourney is a really simple application to use. That said, of course, another subscription, right? And so just something to think about. But I wanted to show a full range of what's possible with these tools. So, ChatGPT, Gemini, they all have free versions that someone can use, and you can do text to image. They might make it so that you can only do so many images, within a particular time frame. But, we counselors often are only seeing someone for 45 minutes to an hour. And so it's usually just about right. And so just some options to think about. One of the ways we can engage with our clients throughout the week is to ask them to take the expressions, the art-based expressions that they created within our work together, and use them as tools of mindfulness or reflection when we're not in session together, to continue their growth and reflective process. And this is just one example of pulling together video with poetry, just very briefly.
Genetic word games divide us, but you have the nerve to keep lying to me. Just another science experiment. I keep my ear to the ground.
And so I'd like to share with you just a brief case study, a clinical vignette of how it might look for a counselor to engage with a client using poetry and AI-assisted poetry. So to begin, Abby is working with her client, Kia, and she wants to engage Kia a bit more within the therapeutic process. Kia is a 21-year-old client. She's come in because she's having some issues with social isolation and depression, and she prefers to meet online. So Abby and her client Kia are meeting to have some online counseling via Zoom. And as they've been beginning their rapport building process, Abby's doing an initial clinical intake. She finds out that Kia has an interest in the arts, and they begin to explore her feelings through poetry. And initially, Kia has some hesitation. She believes that she has nothing to say. And so Abby introduces her to the idea of using ChatGPT as a way to co-construct some poems together. And this isn't just about, of course, using artificial intelligence. It's also a way to build a bridge to Kia's inner world. Abby offers some different kinds of poetic structures, such as haikus or six-word stories. This provides a little bit of scaffolding, which can help Kia to project her thoughts and feelings. It's a common misperception that people feel like creativity exists in a void, and that without any structure, people will be as creative as possible. But I'll just say my bias is somebody who's trained in the fine arts their entire life, that having a container actually promotes creativity. So giving some kind of structure, haiku, six-word story, something that rhymes, some kind of structure helps to allow for the emergent process. And so they work at co-creating poetry in their therapy sessions, and this becomes a turning point for Kia. It allows her to engage with her emotions in a structured yet flexible manner, and provides a new lens through which to view and understand her experiences. As they delve into Kia's significant relationships through metaphor and storytelling, poetry becomes even more than an artistic endeavor. It becomes a medium for healing. And Kia ends up engaging in regular poetry even outside of their counseling sessions. And for Abby, the use of the AI enhanced creative process not only facilitated a deeper exploration of Kia's emotional world, but it also helped to build a rapport and create greater attunement. And just wanted to show here one thing that I've been playing with is putting the poems that I create back into GPT within the DALL-E extension within GPT. So there's, what do I want to say, like GPTs within the model that are focused on different areas of work production. And DALL-E is focused on images. And here I've put in a poem that I wrote and asked it to generate an image based on the poem. And so it makes it so easy to take a multimodal approach in thinking about learning and teaching. And just a couple of prompts that I wanted to share that I've had some fun with. The six-word poems and haikus or short poems are really great places to get started, especially if you're feeling like some writer's block or anxiety. Where do I begin? Those can be some great places to just get started. Taking on the persona of a particular character, an identity or part of the poem, writing a word for each letter of the name. So for example, I'd come up with a word for Abby, A-B-B-Y, a word for A, a word for B, and so on. Exploring a poem, finishing a poem. This can be extended, of course, to song lyrics. So there's lots of different ways to be creative and pulling in ChatGPT into the process. And, these are just some poetry prompts that I found within the counseling literature. So, asking clients to write about self-efficacy, their inner child work, focusing on self-compassion. All of these kinds of prompts could, you could really just give it to GPT, but of course it could be an interactive process between you and your clients and GPT, which could lead to some fun. One of the number one aspects of folks that report that they have good mental health is that they can engage in flexibility, flexible thought. And generative AI can act as a kind of role model for this because it's very versatile. You can give it a prompt. You can take on another person's voice, perhaps someone that you admire. You can use examples that have already been written. You can extend poems. You could do an analysis of a poem. It might be really interesting to write a poem using one of these generative AI models and then ask it to do an analysis. And the image making that the GPT does, or, BARD or any of these other ones, can also become a kind of a point for conversation and analysis. And again, it can really be a standalone intervention, or it can be integrated into any kind of individual or integrative theoretical approach within online counseling. And while I've talked a lot of today, just for time's sake, about GPT, there are lots of other tools kind of emerging. Google has Claude, which would be the equivalent to GPT, but there's also some AI apps out there that are fun to play with, and many of these are free. I've really focused on providing resources that are free here. And as we're thinking about, of course, AI and the ethics of that, poetry is a core reflection of what it means to be human. And no matter how good we get at simulating what it means to be human, we will always crave another human being, and so just a reminder about the importance of, human to human contact. And ultimately, these models are based on existing data. And so if the data is in any way skewed in a particular way, and of course the internet is, then you're going to get particular responses. And so it's just important not only that we're aware of this, that we're informing our clients about it, and that we're a part of the process, that we're sitting at the table while policy makers are going to be reflecting on how to provide guidelines for these kinds of tools, that we're sitting at the table. Because the other piece of this, a lot of has focused on kind of the skewed nature of the data sets. Individuals within the neuroaffirmative or neuro diverse community really rely on these kinds of adaptive tools to be able to communicate. And they should, this community, which I consider myself a part of, should be able to show up and communicate in whatever way feels authentic to their voice. And there's so much to think about here, so much research, so many emerging ideas and opportunities for counselors. And I hope that we'll be at the forefront designing and pushing the modality into a way that will support a more just and empathetic community. Here are some references, and of course I invite conversation, and I'd love to connect with anybody else that feels this is an area of passion for them. Thank you so much for your time. I am grateful.